The glow of the monitor was the only light in the room, a cold, blue-white rectangle that etched sharp shadows across his face. He wasn't a king or a CEO, but in this digital realm, he held more power than either. His username was DreadPirateRoberts, a whimsical alias for a deadly serious enterprise, and the kingdom he ruled was the Silk Road, a sprawling, hidden marketplace accessible only through the Tor network. In this chiaroscuro of light and shadow, he typed with the calm authority of a man who believed himself untouchable, orchestrating a multi-million-dollar flow of drugs, hacking tools, and forged documents to every corner of the globe. He was the architect of a revolution, a libertarian phantom promising freedom from governments and their laws. But in a nondescript office building in Baltimore, a single overlooked mistake was about to unravel his entire digital empire. Special Agent Chris Tarbell of the FBI's Cyber Division stared at the same screen. But his was in a sterile, fluorescent-lit room that smelled of stale coffee and frustration. For months, the Silk Road had been a ghost, a taunting specter in the deep web. They knew its name, its infamy, its devastating impact. Overdoses were being linked back to purchases made with a few clicks, the digital trail vanishing into the cryptographic void. The case file was a monument to dead ends. Tarbell, a man with the weary eyes of a hunter who could see his prey, but never get a clear shot, scrolled through the endless forum posts, the boasts of anonymity, the sheer audacity of it all. The Bureau had thrown every technical wizard it had at the problem, trying to de-anonymize Tor traffic, to find a crack in the fortress's walls, but the system was designed to resist such assaults. It was like trying to grab smoke. Then, one of his junior analysts, a woman with an almost preternatural patience for digital minutiae, flagged a post from over a year ago. It was from the site's administrator, Altoid, recruiting for a developer. A simple, routine post. But it was the username that snagged in Tarbell's mind. Altoid. He'd seen it before, elsewhere. The mental gears began to turn, a slow, grinding process of connecting disparate dots across the vast expanse of the internet. The break came not from a sophisticated cyber attack, but from the oldest flaw in any system: human error. Years earlier, on a programming forum entirely separate from the dark web's sordid underbelly, a user named Altoid had made a post. It was a technical question, innocuous, the kind of thing thousands of developers ask every day. But he'd signed it with an email address, a single, unguarded moment in a life otherwise dedicated to operational security. The two posts, the Altoid on the programming forum and the Altoid recruiting for the Silk Road, were the same. The team held its breath. This was no longer a hunt for a ghost in the machine. It was a search for a man. The email address led them to a name, Ross Ulbricht. The moment Tarbell saw the driver's license photo, a young, bright-eyed, almost idealistic face, a cold certainty settled in his gut. This is him. The Dread Pirate. Roberts wasn't a shadowy cartel kingpin or a hardened criminal mastermind. He was a 29-year-old physics graduate from Texas, a Boy Scout who had gone rogue in the most spectacular way imaginable. Now the investigation shifted from the digital to the physical, a parallel track of relentless surveillance. In San Francisco, a dedicated squad of agents began their silent, patient vigil. They watched Ulbricht in the Glen Park Library, his fingers flying across a laptop, unaware that the very books surrounding him were witness to his empire's command and control. They followed him to coffee shops, where he would sip lattes and, with a few keystrokes, authorize transactions that could end lives. The juxtaposition was jarring. Here was a man who practiced yoga, who had passionate conversations with friends about the economy and freedom, all while managing a global criminal bazaar. The team had to know everything: his routines, his haunts, the passcode to his laptop. The climax had to be perfect: a simultaneous takedown in the real world and seizure in the digital one. They couldn't just arrest the man. They had to capture the king, to seize the server and the millions in Bitcoin that constituted his treasure. The plan was set for October 1st, 2013, in the Glen Park Library. The air in the command post was thick with static and anticipation. Tarbell's voice was a low crackle over the radio. "We have to get that laptop open. The second we move, he'll have a kill switch. He'll encrypt everything. We get one chance. The library was quiet, a sanctuary of knowledge about to become a stage for a takedown. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Ross Ulbricht sat at a table, engrossed in his screen, the modern-day pirate captain navigating his ship. He didn't notice the two plainclothes agents who had been posing as a couple studying nearby until they were right beside him. The world slowed to a crawl. One agent closed in. "Hey, Ross!" Ulbricht looked up, a flicker of confusion in his eyes, not yet fear. In that split second, the agent made a decision, born of countless hours of planning. He didn't go for the man, he went for the machine. His hand shot out, snatching the laptop just as Ulbricht's fingers, reacting on pure instinct, began to dart towards the keyboard. A frantic, silent struggle ensued over the device, a ballet of violence in the hushed library. Ulbricht's face contorted, a mask of panic and disbelief. He yelled, a raw, guttural sound that shattered the quiet, "I need help! Get away from me!" But it was too late. The other agent slammed him against a bookshelf, the thud echoing through the room as cuffs clicked shut around his wrists. In the command post, Tarbell held his breath, his knuckles white. The radio squawked. "We have him, and we have the laptop. It's still open." A collective, silent exhale passed through the team. They had him. The DreadPirateRoberts was gone, and all that was left was Ross Ulbricht, a terrified young man in a public library. Back in Baltimore, the real work began. The laptop was a trove, a digital confessional. Tarbell and his team scrolled through thousands of pages of chat logs, transaction records, and internal memos. Here, in cold text, was the soul of the Silk Road. They read Ulbricht's own words as he philosophized about freedom and the non-aggression principle, even as he discussed commissioning the murder of a former employee he believed was a threat. The idealism was poisoned, twisted by absolute power and paranoia. They saw the meticulous spreadsheets tracking millions of dollars in revenue. Each line item, a transaction that had fueled addiction and crime. They found the private keys to his Bitcoin wallets, a digital fortune worth over $20 million at the time, now seized by the government he sought to render obsolete. The scale was staggering, not just in monetary terms, but in human cost. This wasn't a victimless cybercrime, it was a global narcotics network with a sleek, user-friendly interface. The evidence was so overwhelming, so damningly complete, that at trial, the defense had almost nothing to work with. Ulbricht was convicted on all counts and sentenced to double life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The fluorescent lights hummed their steady, indifferent song in the FBI office long after the headlines had faded. The servers were powered down, the Bitcoin auctioned off, the domain seized. The Silk Road was a ghost once more, but this time, a dead one. Chris Tarbell sometimes thought about that driver's license photo, the hopeful young man Ross Ulbricht had once been, and the monstrous digital persona he created. The case was a landmark, a proof of concept that no one, no matter how clever, was truly anonymous. It was a warning shot across the bow of the dark web, but as Tarbell well knew, for every ghost you lay to rest, a dozen more are born from the shadows. The takedown was a victory, but it felt like containing a spill, not stopping the flow. The demand remained, the technology evolved, and new, more cautious pirates were already raising their sails in the dark corners of the internet, learning from the mistakes of the one who came before. He left the office, stepping out into the cool night air, the city lights glittering like a terrestrial galaxy. Each pinprick of light represented 1,000 connected devices, 1,000 potential secrets, 1,000 new doors leading to rooms both bright and unimaginably dark. The war wasn't over. It had just changed its battlefield. The code of the internet promises anonymity, but every cipher can be broken, not by machine, but by man.